My name is Caroline Dennett, and a year ago today I resigned my contract with Shell. I was working as a safety consultant because I could no longer tolerate your failure to address the harms you knowingly cause to our planet and to local environments, ecosystems and people, whilst publicly claiming you have green policies and high ambitions for safety. I worked with you for over 10 years trying to keep people safe, trying to prevent oil and gas leaks, major incidents, injuries and fatalities. For those who don't know, your stated safety ambition is to do no harm to people and to have no leaks. You call it Goal Zero. It sounds honourable, and I was proud to work with that ambition for many years, but you are completely failing on it. You know that continued oil and gas extraction causes extreme harm to our climate, to our environment and to people. So Andrew, I wrote to you and the Executive Committee and Directors on the 23rd of May last year with my concerns, and to date I have received no response. My letter was a serious professional assessment of safety concerns, which you have ignored. And so I come here today to talk to you about your process safety record, particularly your catastrophic record in the Niger Delta, and ask you to directly listen to these concerns and answer my questions. So for anyone not familiar with the term process safety, it basically means doing all that you can to keep the hydrocarbons, oil, gas and their derivatives, in the pipe and prevent leaks, spills, fires and explosions. You do not need me to tell you that the Niger Delta and the communities who live there have been sacrificed and continue to experience extreme hardships because of your careless operations. They have no choice but to eat, drink and breathe the poisons from your circa 60 years of oil and gas extraction there. I have heard you blame, or maybe not you directly, but Shell managers, blame sabotage from locals for these leaks and spills. How convenient, transferring the responsibilities. However, the results of the process safety culture surveys I have conducted in Shell Nigeria since 2012 have told a different truth. A catalogue of production pressures, shortcuts, budget constraints, unsafe manpower levels, poor maintenance regimes, including overdue maintenance on safety critical equipment, lack of training and second-class treatment of contractors who go unpaid for months, unable to feed themselves and their families. In the last round of process safety culture measurements I did before I left, which was across Shell companies in Nigeria, management were informed in January last year that 40% of the workforce said you did not have adequate personnel to conduct operations safely. 35% said they believed you are putting production first and process safety second in the pursuit of profits. 35% also said that corrective maintenance on safety critical equipment, so that's critical repairs, was not done in a timely manner, and a staggering 80% said that spare parts were not available when needed. Not surprisingly, therefore, 30% said they don't trust management to address process safety issues promptly. And setting aside the statistics, here are direct concerns expressed by personnel, your personnel, and shared with management. Organisational restructuring has led to reduced manpower with increased workloads to people, a system-induced error-enforcing condition for people to attempt to take shortcuts or neglect critical aspects when executing jobs, and this is a recipe for process safety incidents. Another said, I have heard of at least 2 individuals in the organisation who have died as a result of overbearing workload, having to work through the day and the night. Another said, a lot of work and focus needs to be given to maintenance to ensure sustenance of equipment integrity, as there are presently too many broken down or compromised equipment. That you cannot assure that a plant with high failure and high breakdown rates and the lack of training for staff in the front line, so not being able to operate a plant as designed effectively increases our vulnerability and exposure to process safety incidents. So as for sabotage, one worker actually indicated that Shell should improve making your wellheads safe and secure because there have been too many thefts. So the pollution of the Niger Delta isn't simply down to sabotage, is it? It is caused by willful neglect of your own equipment and assets in the pursuit of profits, huge profits. So I have 2 questions really, and one is addressed to investors and one is addressed to the committee. So, dear investors here and those watching remotely, given this catalogue of process safety failures, can you say with your hand on your heart that the funds that you represent, the ordinary pension fund members, the savers, the ISA holders, just anyone whose financial assets you manage, that they want to dabble in what is effectively blood money? Do they want their hands stained? Is it time to hold Shell to account and use your power to clean them up or disengage entirely? And to the CEO, the Chair, the Executive Committee, the Board of Directors, and particularly those on the Safety Environment Committee, why do you withhold funding to your own assets that would enable them to be operated more safely and maintained properly? Will you now commit the necessary finances and resources to prevent harm to workers and the communities, to prevent extensive leaks and spills, the likes of which we have seen in the Niger Delta for decades and continue to see, with loss of life and health, loss of livelihoods, loss of nature and loss of ecosystems?
Obviously, I'm going to pass some of the details over to Will, but I would start with a bit of better news story across the whole Shell, because we actually made very significant progress on our safety performance in 2022. We saw a 75% reduction in serious injury and fatality frequency, and a 35% reduction in process safety events. So some of the things that maybe you helped set up in Shell are starting to bear fruit. Now, the situation in the Niger Delta does remain challenging. SPDC continues to face, and you acknowledge that, the twin challenges of sabotage and crude oil theft, which clearly, even though you have a different view as by how much, does endanger people's lives and sadly deprives Nigeria of the kind of tax revenues that might allow the kind of investment that might deal with some of the issues you're talking about. But if I may leave that there to this high-level view, maybe, Will, you might deal with some of the detail. Thanks.
Thank you, Sir Andrew. And thank you, Ms. Dennett, for the question, and thank you for your service to Shell for 10 years. If I reflect on Nigeria a bit, a place I've had the opportunity and the privilege to visit many times and to see our operations in person, firstly, let me take off my hat to the many who are serving us in Nigeria day in and day out, to be able to go under very, very difficult circumstances, where often their lives are at threat from the smugglers and from different threats that come in. We never said, by the way, that it was all due to sabotage and theft. We said that over 90, often 95% of the leaks that are occurring in SPDC, which is the joint venture that manages the Nigerian assets, is coming from sabotage and theft. There is, of course, also SPDC experiences its own leaks, which it attends to very quickly. And even the leaks that are occurring because of sabotage and theft, SPDC has one of the world's best response units to be able to go out there and clean up those to protect the environment that they operate in. We have pioneered some of the, I think, the best process safety responses. You talked earlier about, for example, wellhead safety and security. We actually build cages to be able to protect it from the theft, because what has typically happened is when thieves have come in to take parts of the wellhead, it has put them at risk and has put others around them at risk. So we are creating new ways to be able to defend against those threats. We also support SPDC as one of its joint venture partners in providing the capital it needs for its maintenance. But again, there is much complexity. For example, the permission to be able to source equipment and services is not one for the joint venture to make by itself. It's one that is determined by multiple agencies in Nigeria, some of which insist on certain timelines and the like, which unfortunately means SPDC doesn't always have access to the resources they need. And so on balance, what I would say is there is a lot of effort going in, and actually Nigeria has had one of its best years, actually best 2 years in terms of safety performance. So I regret the mischaracterization that you have placed on a lot of it, but at the same time we take every single concern seriously, and we continue to look at the opportunities to support that joint venture as it looks to improve its record. I think the final thing I would say is it's a location that we have recognized a few years ago that the risk-reward to operate in a place like Nigeria is no longer tolerable when it comes to onshore oil. And that is why we have announced a couple of years ago the intent to exit onshore oil in Nigeria and focus on the gas value chain, the LNG value chain more specifically, as well as deep water, which I deeply regret, because I think Nigeria deserves the capabilities that a company like Shell is able to bring, both in terms of the returns they get, the tax returns and the proceeds, but also the many who we employ in Nigeria, many of whom are amongst our best staff and represent the largest expatriate community in the Shell group. Those will be opportunities that over time, unfortunately, we will not be able to offer because of some of the moves we're having to make. So it is with a heavy heart that we got to that conclusion. But thank you for expressing your concerns.
Yeah, can I just say, that's not my mischaracterisation. The statistics that I quoted came directly from employee and contractor surveys. It is them who are saying, it is them, 40% of them who said that they don't feel they have adequate manpower to operate safely. It is 35% of them who says that management are putting production before safety. So it's great to hear how much you love the people there in Nigeria.